Okay, this should finish Chapter 5 in Dyslexia in the Classroom by Dr. Dale Jordan. He mentions a little bit to do here with dyscalculia, which is problems with arithmetic and math. And he mentions it in this chapter because visual dyslexia has a part to play in dyscalculia too. The section's entitled, there we go, Arithmetic, page 82. Arithmetic. Chapter 1 discusses briefly the perceptual dilemma dyslexic children face in mastering arithmetic skills. The major deficit is inability to change direction without becoming confused and losing the mental picture of the number relationships involved. Arithmetic computation above the primary level involves thousands of transformations as sets, number units, and abstractions change positions within problem forms. Arithmetic symbols represent highly condensed decoding reading. A single symbol often stands for a complex abstract concept. It would take many lines of prose to express clearly the memory factors involved in most simple appearing problems and equations. Students who tend to scramble sequence, lose directionality, and reverse and transpose entities within patterns find it very difficult to master the myriad variations they encounter beyond beginning computation levels. The foremost consideration for teachers to keep in mind when working with dyslexics is to keep the structure as nearly the same as possible. It is distressing for dyslexics to have to shift back and forth from linear form, which would be 7 plus blank equals 13, to vertical form, 7 plus blank equals 13 on the bottom. Okay, this is confusing. Lessons requiring students to transform rapidly or frequently impose so much memory stress that most dyslexics quickly become agitated or rebellious. Wise teachers who recognize memory and directional problems in their students keep the format of problems the same. Dyslexics are capable of learning linear form equations, but they cannot rapidly change back and forth from one mode to another. Since the goal of education is to prepare students for future situations beyond the classroom, it is totally unimportant that all children change directionality quickly on demand just for practice. Dyslexics need structure, which stays the same as much of the time as possible. Whenever teachers must vary the problem form, dyslexic students must be given time and help in making the perceptual change. Some children never learn to do so at all. For them, the standard vertical problem mode is essential, since this is the style they will need the most in their future private lives. An increasingly common practice is to let children use inexpensive pocket calculators for classroom computing. Now, he's talking about this in 1977. Where do we go now? Dyslexics need to develop functional knowledge of paper-pencil computing, of course, but there is no way they can handle the quantity of work prescribed by most classroom programs. Mike cannot possibly work arithmetic problems faster than his usual plodding rate. Of necessity, his work is labored and prolonged when he must translate mental images into written forms. A hand calculator gives him an instant means of speeding up his work, and the increase in his self-confidence is just as rapid. With a calculator, he can pour out arithmetic work along with the fastest pencil performers in the class. What a boost to his morale it is to hold his own after so much embarrassment and sense of failure. High school and college math instructors are making wide use of pocket calculators. In fact, the slide rule in math courses is becoming obsolete. Believe it or not, when I was in college going through engineering, I actually had to learn slide rule. I had a whole class on doing slide rule. Some of you may not even know what that is. It was before pocket calculators. In fact, the slide rule in math courses is becoming obsolete, forcing disabled students to labor with traditional paper-pencil computation is just as obsolete, especially when no real purpose is served except for satisfying tradition. We've always done it this way does not justify forcing dyslexics to agonize over memorized facts when a remarkably simple new form is now available. The pocket calculator has come into its own as a valid educational tool. Teachers who resist its use are refusing to step into the 20th century. Well, now we're in the 21st century. A wide variety of publications now offers classroom techniques for teaching arithmetic skills to dyslexics. See the reading list at the end of this chapter. Watchful teachers will discover a wide variety of new materials appearing as more attention is given to teaching arithmetic to children with special needs. Classroom teachers must keep two cardinal rules in mind when teaching arithmetic skills to dyslexic children. Number one, keep the structure constant. Because conservation of form, reversibility, and transformation is so difficult for dyslexics, arithmetic structure must remain the same from day to day. Frequent changes in mode, format, and directionality are devastating to confused students who cannot handle rapid shifts in form. And number two, keep the work rate slow. Dyslexics must not be pressured to hurry in computation. If quantity is important, then they must be given the bypass mode of a pocket calculator. A hand calculator is an equalizer, making up the vast difference between the perceptual endowments of rapid learners and the disabilities for which the dyslexic child is not responsible. If paper-pencil routines are essential, then the work rate must be slow. If calculators are permitted, then the dyslexic can produce as much arithmetic work as his peers. Reading orally. Reading aloud is a prime avenue for correcting reversals and rotations. As the dyslexic child reads slowly from one text, his tutor monitors from another copy. Now, I want to add that if you have an inverted reader, they're reading it upside down, but you have the book in front of you, so it's absolutely simple. You know, you can have them point and follow along. They're doing it upside down, but it's very easy to make corrections. You'll know exactly what they're doing and what they're doing wrong. As mistakes occur, the monitor quietly says, "Look at that word again, Mike. How is it spelled?" That's very important. Having them spell the word out tells you when they get every letter right that they are seeing it for them correctly. Okay, you never see reversals. For an inverted reader, they never make those mistakes between the D's and the B's and the P's and the Q's. They don't do it because they're looking at it the correct way. It's really uncanny. This sort of cueing is low-key. There is no embarrassment or shame in calling the child's attention to his errors. By immediately pinpointing error patterns, the tutor reinforces accurate symbol perception on a one-to-one basis. The intelligent dyslexic soon begins to catch his own errors by coordinating what he sees, says, and hears. Using tachoscopes. Now I had to look that up myself to see what it was, but it's very simple. Individual perceptual training is augmented through the use of tachoscopes of various kinds. These devices range from simple handmade flashcards, and that's the key, it's like flashcards, to expensive electronic instruments mounted in learning booths. I'm going to skip this next section. There's a little bit about some commercial products that were available in '77, but now we have the computers, so they're very easy to find. It's basically, I'll explain. Okay, the dyslexic student practices perceiving whole word units in a fraction of a second. So it's flashed and down. He immediately tries to pronounce the word, and then he writes it quickly while the visual image is still fresh in his mind. Finally, he opens or is given access to the word to check for his accuracy. This kind of forced response is highly effective in correcting faulty perception, particularly when reversal and rotation tendencies are involved. Matching word forms. Daily drill activities can be devised by the monitor or teacher to develop accuracy in word discrimination. A simple word is presented on a flashcard. After a quick glance, the dyslexic student tries to find a matching word within a line of similar word forms. The following example is from the JWST, which is Dr. Jordan's given test form, which illustrate how this can be done in the classroom. So let's see, I think you can see that. There we go. All right. So if you're given the word barn, if the student is given the word, well, this one is barn, B-A-R-N. The choices that the student would have would be B-R-A-N, bran, pran, P-U-A-R, B-U-A-R, N-A-R-B, U-A-R-P, and B-A-R-N is at the end. Okay, so obviously that he would or she would have to find the word that matches the given word. And again, the next word would be spot, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different variations on the spelling of spot, and same thing with silver, 7 different variations. And the key would be to find the word in the given list. Next section, keeping track of progress. Those teachers who conquer dyslexia in the classroom or at home, for those of you who are homeschooling, usually keep track of progress. This should be a simple procedure requiring a minimum of bookkeeping. Older children can learn to record their own progress as they do in other individualized study programs utilized by many schools. The initial task is for the teacher to prepare a guide sheet outlining the child's specific dyslexic tendencies. The checklist used for diagnosis is a convenient basis for constructing the guide sheet. Brief comments should be recorded to indicate improvement. The final entry beside each dyslexic characteristic is the date when the problem has come under control. Of course, it is impossible to know the very day when certain tendencies disappear, but the child and his tutor can compile a record of improvement, which is the major consideration in building self-confidence. This simple diagnostic record offers 2 advantages for remedial work in the classroom. First, prescriptive teaching is quite simple, once the specific deficiencies have been identified on the checklist. This means that the teacher can pace the child's progress from one skill level to the next without undue frustration. Until the record sheet shows that specific problems have been cleared up, the teacher knows not to push the child onto a more frustrating level of activity. Second, the record sheet forms the basis for a reasonable work contract between the child and his tutor. The dyslexic student knows exactly how much remains to be remediated in his learning behavior. Without this simple record and communication between teacher and child, everyone involved continues to wallow in frustration and failure. The dyslexic child's frustration threshold is an accurate index to the success of remedial activities. So long as the tutor observes tension, disruptive behavior, frustration, anxiety, dread, avoidance tactics, and other symptoms of learning difficulty, she knows the child's learning disabilities remain operational. Regardless of the age of the student or the lateness in the year, it is useless and dangerous to push the dyslexic student further and further on through the books. The teacher will know when the perceptual foundation has taken hold. The child will begin to exhibit long-range tranquility in comparison to his former frustrated behavior during study activities. When the student can work rather calmly for long periods of time, which he would be considered, or Dr. Jordan considers a half an hour or more, a long period of time, with the materials which used to bring disruptive reactions, the teacher will know that remediation has been effective. Then it will be time to take the child to the next step of perceptual development. This is an important section, making referrals. 4 out of 5 dyslexics in the classroom can respond to the techniques suggested in this chapter. Some cannot. Approximately 20% of the handicapped students require specialized remedial therapy away from a group environment. Teachers should call for help when it is indicated. However, classroom teachers must not give up on a child because of the convenience of having him placed elsewhere. Unfortunately, only a handful of clinics and other institutions specialize in dyslexia. Many reading clinics do not deal with this disability. In fact, some clinical services deny that such a reading disability exists. Now, hopefully that's changed. A rule of thumb for referral to other agencies must be this. So long as the child is making some progress, I'll keep up my efforts to cope with his problems in the classroom. When his behavior becomes so disruptive that others cannot learn, or when he becomes so frustrated he cannot continue in a group, then I'll refer him to another agency for special help, SPED. If there is no outside help available for seriously dyslexic students, the classroom teacher can make a trustworthy diagnosis by using the instruments and techniques presented in this book. Many communities are forming volunteer helping hands groups of interested parents, teenagers, or college students to take some pressure off the disabled students in local classrooms. Churches, civic organizations, and the PTA are potential allies for the classroom teacher once such volunteer groups are shown that the need exists. And again, Dr. Jordan is very meticulous in documenting references for further reading. He has over 40 here. They may be old, but reading hasn't changed all that much. So they all have something to offer, I believe.